This is Michael Tucker, and you're watching the new Legends on Deck podcast with host Brian Koss and David Condi.
Brian Meyer.
To be honest with you, it was like a little giggle.
Meyer learning he would now be the man in charge of leading the Mighty Mussels in 2021.
I walked into the kitchen and my wife goes, "So?" And I said, "I'm the manager." And we both just kind of laughed. We were both just really kind of speechless and just kind of giggling over the excitement of it.
The team promoting him from hitting coach to manager, bringing over a decade of college experience to the dugout. And plenty of excitement to get back to advancing his players' careers at the next level.
We're in the player development system. Our job is to develop players and get these guys, as much as we want to see them in Fort Myers for a long time, our job is to get them to Cedar Rapids.
But it's more than that for the new manager. It's about getting back to this, the sights, sounds, and smells of baseball.
I'm excited to see fans in the ballpark, to watch these guys, to hear the roar of a crowd, to smell hot dogs in the stadium, to be heckled, like all that stuff.
And after over 18 months away and 2 years for Coach Meyer, this new era could not come any faster.
It's going to be really exciting. Everybody's going to be real fired up. And it's easy to get fired up for opening day, like no matter what year it is.
Welcome to episode 31 of the Legends on Deck podcast. I'm Brian Koss with my co-host David Condi. And today we welcome the manager of the Fort Myers Mighty Mussels, Brian Meyer. I always, when I see the Mighty Mussels name, I'll just say, I always get a little confused because I remember them being the Miracle. So I'm like, what team is that again? But the Mighty Mussels are a single A affiliate of the Minnesota Twins. And Brian was the Florida State League Manager of the Year in 2022. Prior to that, he had spent years coaching at the college level at a number of big schools, including Wright State, Tulane, and Butler. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian. Hey, David. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to sitting down and talking some baseball with you guys.
Great. It's always great to just kind of bring guys on to kind of play in the game and kind of share with our followers, what's kind of going on. Because we do on the writing side, but sometimes when it's on the inside part of it, it's even better, the insight. So kind of want to just jump into it quickly. Oh, going back real quick, Brian Koss. We have two Brians today.
Yeah.
So everybody's saying, wow, yeah, episode 31. We're moving along. Brian and I have a goal of hitting 50 this summer and 100 within the next year. And we'll get, when we get close to that 100, we'll discuss what we want to do with that one. But that's kind of a milestone for the site. As fast as we put this together, as fast as we've been moving and having some great guests. I mean, every single guest have been amazing. So just keep tuning in because it's going to be episode after episode is going to be one special guest after another. So anyway, let me stop talking about all that and kind of just jump into Brian here. Kind of how I met Brian real quickly was Chris Rizzola is the director of Babe Ruth locally. I know he has another role, I think, in the Caribbean market, trying to push Babe Ruth that way. And I met Brian maybe a year ago at Pelican in Cape Coral. I was coaching, and we had an event, and he was there to kind of throw out the first pitch, I think, for opening day. And Chris kind of brought him together with me, and we just talked about and kind of did some different just kind of talking about baseball and stuff and following along. That's kind of our connection together. So, it's been great because I gone over to spring training and kind of watched how he does his training. And it's kind of helped me with my kids because it's kind of, almost at the same level. But we'll kind of get into that a little later. But, Brian, can you kind of give us an idea, what kind of led you into baseball? When did you get started? Kind of your background. We kind of want to know that ahead of time. Like, how did you get into baseball?
Yeah, baseball has just been my whole life ever since I was a little kid. There's pictures of me when I was 3 or 4 years old, full uni, bat, playing in the backyard, and kind of that's where it's all started. But it's just grown with me ever since. And It's something that I think when I was growing up, you always wanted to be a professional baseball player. And I was fortunate enough to play college ball at a Division III school, Otterbein College in Columbus, Ohio. And I wasn't good enough. I wasn't big enough or strong enough, to play Division I or anything. And, back at that time, it was a little bit different, from a recruiting standpoint. But it's just always been part of me. I never thought in a million years I'd be a coach, let alone a professional coach. I always wanted to be a big league player. And then, when you realize that you're not going to achieve that, you kind of go in a different direction. And I went in the direction of I wanted to be a high school athletic director. And I was fortunate enough after I got done playing that the school that I actually did my internship with as an with the athletic director, I got to know the baseball coach there. And he asked me if, this is while I was still playing, if I wanted to coach their freshman summer baseball team. So 2 weeks after I was done playing, me and one of my best friends, we were in the dugout, helping these kids who were going to be freshmen in high school, just play summer baseball. And it was super fun. I had a blast with it. And then he offered me the high school job as the head freshman coach. So that's kind of where I got my start from a coaching standpoint. Kind of the guy who put the coaching in my ear was our pitching coach at Otterbein, who to this day is still a really good friend. He lives up in Babcock Ranch, and it's nice because I get to play golf with him all the time in the off season. But I think it was after practice one day, he sat me down, and we were going to need a new grad assistant in a couple years at Otterbein. And he goes, you should really like think about coaching and, come back and be our GA. And I was like, I don't know, Dave, like, I really like this athletic director thing. And, lo and behold, as time went, I went back to Otterbein as the grad assistant after 2 years coaching high school ball, and spent 3 years there, my alma mater. I learned a lot. I was given a lot of freedom to try new things, to be creative in practice settings when you have 50 plus hitters at a small Division III school. So I learned a ton during my time at Otterbein. And we had a really good squad. My first year, we were preseason #1 in the country. And so, not only did we have to develop, the younger kids who were coming up, but we also had to keep developing our guys at the top. But I really enjoyed that time, and the freedom that I had to learn and to try new things with different players. I got involved in summer college baseball. I spent a couple years in the Great Lakes Collegiate League too as the hitting coach, and then I spent one as the head coach in 2010. And there was a moment after the 2009 season, actually, at Otterbein, where I'd finished up at Otterbein with my my graduate degree, and finished up summer ball. And my parents and I went to a Longhorn Steakhouse after the game. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. And we just sat there in silence. And I just said, what's next? And because I had no idea, I really had no idea at that point what was going to be next for me. I was substitute teaching and going back to help out Otterbein in the high school, just kind of trying to stay involved in the game a little bit. And 2 weeks later, after that call, I got a call from Rob Cooper, who is now the head coach at Penn State University, who at the time was at Wright State. And he was looking for a volunteer assistant. And so 3 days later, I went down and interviewed with Coop, and he offered me the job the next day. I took it. 3 days later, I subleased an apartment and moved from Columbus to Dayton, and began the volunteer coach life. And I was driving back and forth from Dayton to Columbus and back to Dayton for practice because I had an in at the high school for substitute teaching, and I was able to make money that way. And so I did that for 2.5 years, and I learned a lot from Coop, and we had a great coaching staff and a really good team. And then from there, it's really hard to go from that volunteer position to a paid Division I assistant. And I was fortunate enough that Coop had a connection down at Tulane down in New Orleans where they had a director of ops job open. And Coop called me in his office one day and he said, "Hey, Brian, look, I know this isn't a coaching job, but you're going to learn from one of the best head coaches in the country, who at the time was Rick Jones, a pretty good program, not a Power 5 school, but a school who was consistently in the top 25." And he goes, you're going to be off the field, but you're going to learn a ton. And, I went down to New Orleans and really liked it. And Coach Jones offered me the job and moved down to New Orleans. Like, all right, yeah, here we go. So I spent 5 years down at Tulane, learned a ton from Coach Jones and then from David Pierce, who was there for 2 years before going to the University of Texas, and just a bunch of other guys who were assistant coaches there, Jake Gautreaux, Chad Suter, Sean Allen, Philip Miller, guys who have been around the game for a long time. And, you learn differences between a mid-major school and a, just out, they call themselves Power 6 conference, and you learn the difference and the passion of the fan base. And, I was able to learn the business side of things. And, and then had a couple good years at Tulane in 15 and 16. And then there was a coaching change. And again, I was kind of at that crossroads of what's next. And I just started sending emails out, to coaches like, "Hey, this is what I aspire to do." And, I searched the NCAA website forever. And, you send all these resumes out, you don't hear anything back. And then I emailed Butler, was on my list, and Dave Schrag had just gotten hired. And he sent me an email back saying, "I got a volunteer job open." Like, he called one of his buddies from grad school who was like our facilities guy, and the mutual friends that people have that you don't know they have. And he's like, "Hey, the volunteer job's yours if you want it. Like, you can make as much money as you want running camps, and we're gonna build this thing," because Butler wasn't very good at the time. And so I was married at that point, and my wife, she's like, "You got to do it." So I moved up to Indianapolis for a couple months without her, and actually lived with her aunt and uncle, and until she was able to find a job and come up to Indy, and spent 3.5 really good years in Indy. Had a lot of fun with that group of people, and it was nice at that point to go to a program where we were trying to build something. Every other program that I was fortunate to be at, Otterbein, Tulane, Wright State, like, they were established programs within their conference and within the national, the national picture. And so it was a different challenge at Butler, from a resource standpoint, from a conference standpoint. They were different challenges, but they were good challenges. And, I feel very fortunate to be able to have learned a lot from so many people, both what good coaching looks like. And then on the flip side of that, things that maybe I didn't agree with on the way. I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. But to just be able to find my own niche and have that kind of creativity and freedom to ultimately, land on my feet here with the Twins back in 2020.
So I'm going to jump the gun a little bit on, I know we're going to touch a little bit about the collegiate, the side of it, but I'm intrigued to know, so you're at Butler. When did you get a call? When did it jump into minor league baseball? Like, how did that transition?
Yeah, so I was actually, it was a Friday, and one of our assistants at the time, I went to Butler to be the volley, and one of our assistants that day had gotten hired to be the head coach at Western Illinois. So I knew that if he got the job, I was going to get promoted, and I got promoted at about noon. And there was a big tournament up at Grant Park, big site in Indianapolis for some tournaments. So I go up to recruit on that night on Friday, and I run into Shooter Hunt. So Shooter and I coached together at Tulane, and so this day is a good friend of mine. But Shooter's a national cross checker for PBR. So I run into Shooter, and we're talking, and he goes, "Hey, have you ever thought about pro baseball?" And at that time, I had reached out to some of my friends who were in pro ball that summer and just, picked their brain about it, like, just to see what it was like. He goes, "Well, hey, the Twins are looking for people. You want me to give them your name?" I was like, "Shooter, I literally just got promoted 4 hours ago." Like, but sure, why not? So Shooter ended up given his contact here with the Twins my name, and I went through the interview process and was eventually hired to be the Fort Myers Miracle hitting and infield coach starting with the 2020 season. And, was super pumped up. Fort Myers, we're going to move to Florida. We're going to be the Miracle, going to have these cool jerseys and colors and everything. And, that lasted for about, I think 2.5 weeks. And my wife texted me like, "Hey, you're not the Miracle anymore." So, but we embrace the purple, and we do some fun things with the Mussels.
Yeah, I was a little shocked because I've been down here since 2006, and we would go to Miracle games and actually would cover for the site, the Miracle. So it was so great. So when they changed them up, I guess it was around the time of COVID, right? When they kind of
it was right before that happened.
So when everything shut down, I'm not paying attention to anything. I come back in the news, oh, the Mighty Mussels. I'm like, who's that? It's like a whole new team over here. Like, what's going on? So it was like a huge change. Like, why are you changing the name? So I didn't even the story for another day, but. It was kind of, so you do have purple in your uniforms, right?
Yeah, purple. we got purple and gold. So, our old head coach from Tulane, he texted me when we changed to the Mussels, and he goes, "This is the only purple and gold that I'll root for."
That's funny. So that's a really interesting path, a really interesting journey that you took, and kind of jumping. And like David had just asked about the jumping from the college side into the pro side real quick. But on the college side, it seems like you had a good, well-rounded experience with from the recruiting side, the coaching side, all that, and various different programs. Can you share with us a little bit of your insight as a college coach? Like what's that recruiting process like as a coach? We've talked to some players that talked about being recruited, but from a college coaching standpoint, how did you go out to get your players? What do you look for in players, at the high school level? Anything you'd like to share in that regard?
Yeah, I think, I've been out of the college game since before the transfer portal and before the name, image, and likeness. So, I don't envy at all what those recruiting coordinators do now. Still my friends who are still involved in the college game, you text them here and there and ask them about it, and it's just a mess. So I think it's a lot different than when I was in the college game. But I think at the end of the day, as a recruiter, you're looking for players who fit where you're at as a program. I know like the players who we were recruiting at Tulane, we were trying to get back to a national status, but Tulane has high academic standards. There's a hefty price tag that goes with that. So not only do you need the talent, from a physical standpoint to perform on the field and to kind of, dream on some guys from a projection standpoint, but, they also have to have the financial means to be able to afford it. And, it was kind of the same thing at Butler, high academic school, private education.
So Butler and Tulane are both private schools?
Yes, both private schools.
So that makes a big difference because
no doubt
you can't get that state, because football and basketball are those schools that can give out those big scholarships.
Sure.
And baseball scholarships are a little bit more limited from what I understand.
Yeah. So I could be wrong on this. I don't know if this has changed. I know there was talk about it, but at the time the minimum scholarship you could give was 25%.
Okay.
So, you have 11.7 to spend, and you're trying, you're going to spend some on pitching. You're going to spend some on shortstops and catchers. And, you have to really be creative with your money that you do have. And when you're trying to get a walk-on kid, or an academic kid who's depending on his family's affluence, and LSU's recruiting him and you're recruiting him at Tulane, or, when I was at Butler, Ball State or Butler, that cost, it really does play, and it plays a factor in a kid's decision, so when you're at those types of school, you try to sell the education part of it, and you hope that when you do go out, you're attracting the right kind of kids, and, you do your due diligence on, the family background and the financial background. And if this kid, if his family wasn't very well off, we're going to have to offer him more money if we want a shot with him. If especially if the parents weren't willing to, take out the loans and all those kind of stuff that go with it.
Sure.
So there's that component to it as well. From a baseball standpoint, you're looking for guys who can play the game right. Guys who, if you want to bring in a freshman who really needs to impact your program right away, like, does he check all the boxes you want? If you have two really good, right-handed pitchers and you need a left-handed pitcher in that class, like, okay, we need a left-handed pitcher. And unfortunately, when some kids who may be right-handed pitchers, you just, hey, like, I'm sorry, we're just full. I know the NCAA has expanded the roster limits a little bit but through COVID and everything. Again, like right now, I don't know exactly what those are, but before you were kind of handicapped as to how many players you could have. And you're not going to bring a kid in who you don't think's really going to play and make him pay $70,000 for an education, unless he wants to be at that school. Sometimes we had a kid at Tulane who he was a walk-on, and he basically showed up on our doorstep and ended up being our Friday night starter by his senior year. And, that those kind of things happen. It was a kid who wasn't on our radar through the recruiting process, and it was like, great, this is awesome, And then there's the kids who you really go after hard, and you either don't get them or, they show up and they don't pan out to be what you want them to be, to help the program. But, there's different things you look for from different positions, and balancing your classes, and just the needs of that class, which I think gets lost in the shuffle when it comes to a student athlete's view of the recruiting process. Where, go ahead.
Oh, no, my other question, now I'm thinking of it. So on the student side or the athlete side, so as you guys are going out, let's say Tulane, being in New Orleans, are you going to showcases across the Southeast, or are you mostly in Louisiana? Are you in,
I think you
border states?
Yeah. Every program that I've been fortunate to be at, we always started at home,
Yep.
And kind of grew out from there. And you have your pockets. Obviously, when I was at Butler, Indy's a hidden gem for baseball, and Indy's it's a great location because you're 3 hours from Columbus, you're 3 hours from St. Louis, you're 3 hours or an hour and a half from Chicago, so you can pick from, some local guys, but then, you build connections with high school coaches and travel team coaches. And, like Coach Strag at Butler, the guy was coaching for 30 plus years. So he had guys all over the country who would call him and say, hey, we got this guy, what are you looking for? And that's where you can kind of get creative from recruiting and who you're bringing into your program.
So the kids don't really know, like they have an idea, hey, I've always wanted to play at Butler, I always want to play at Tulane. And it's just basically what you guys need if you're even gonna bring them in or not. Even if they're talented,
yeah,
you may not need an outfielder and say you
right.
don't recruit them at all.
Yeah, and it might be something to where, like, he's always wanted to play at Butler, and he doesn't fit your needs. Was like, hey, you can come as a walk-on, and there's instances where, okay, you can come as a walk-on and you can have the fall and try to make the roster. Have had a lot of instances like that. Sometimes it's worked to where the kids have made the roster, and sometimes it hasn't. But you do try to honor those kids who, they have a passion for the school, and especially if they want to go there for academic reasons. You try to use baseball as another avenue, just to support them in what they're trying to do as well. And at the end of the day, you try to be honest with them, whether they make it or don't make it. And, you have to do what's right for your team, and then obviously do right by the person as well.
But when you were recruiting, did you ever come up, because, I coach the kids and I always tell them, hey, be a utility ball player, because when you go to high school, you get on the field. Did you ever come across any kids that can, hey, coach, I go anywhere you need me to be, I'm ready?
Oh yeah. And I think when you look at kids who go from the high school ranks to the college ranks and are that type of kid, they may play one position really well and the rest of them mediocre. But, if the old adage, if you can hit, we'll find a place for you, and so if they can hit and You develop them defensively to maybe a position that fits best for the team that you have for that year.
So I want to touch one last thing on collegiate stuff, and then we'll kind of jump into the pro world. So we talked to a lot of collegiate summer league coaches and teams and stuff, and they always mention how the process is and how to bring in the kids there. Sometimes the relationship between the coaches. Did you ever send your guys over to collegiate league with their relationship? Was hey, this league is better than the other one? And then you mentioned you were part of the collegiate summer league in your journey. So was that something that helped you out as well?
Yeah, for sure. Those relationships are huge on both ends of it. When you're the summer team, and then when you're the college coach, and you try to send guys to appropriate leagues that they'll get the at bats or the innings that you need them to get in order to develop, and two, that's skill appropriate. You're not unfortunately not everybody can go play in the Cape Cod League, even though they want to or they think they can. But you might send them to the Great Lakes League. We sent a lot of freshmen at Butler to the Great Lakes League, so that they would play 4 times a week and they would get 20 at-bats a week, and they would get the reps that they need to develop, and that they're going to be taken care of the right way by the organization that you're sending them to, and that they're going to have a good experience. I think that was the biggest thing, that when I was the coach was, I would try to get the college coaches to understand, like, hey, we're going to take care of them. My number one goal is to help them develop and get them back to you healthy, and make it a good experience for them. If you do those things as the organization, like, you're going to get a good reputation. You're going to be able to get better players from the programs who you do have relationships with. And then on the flip side of that, from the college side, you're going to send better guys to that organization because that they're going to get taken care of on the field. They're going to have a good experience off the field. And, at the end of the day, that coach has their players' best interest in mind. And, for summer ball, we were fortunate enough to win a regular season championship when I was coaching summer ball. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, if you win a championship, but you send all your guys, all the college coaches' kids back hurt, like, you're not doing your job.
Yeah,
so it's good to have the relationship also, because then they can give you a call. Hey, on the flip side, whatever side it is, hey, coach, we got your guy here. This is what he's doing. It's how, and then you kind of get a report because you have that rapport with them.
No doubt.
With your development coming into the fall college season. For sure.
And I think it helped me when I was coaching the summer ball to build those relationships. And, when I did get the opportunity to go to Wright State, and you see those guys on the, when you play against them or anything like that, it helps just build your relationship with the other coaches too, So, maybe when you are a volunteer and they do have an opportunity, there's maybe a window there for, to at least get an interview or something.
That's awesome. So it seems there's quite a good tight-knit community really between a lot of the coaches at that level. There's a lot of relationship building. You're not just all out there just trying to tear each other up. But that's kind of neat.
And you get on the recruiting circuit and you're seeing the same guys, or, I did the camp circuit for a long time. And now, guys who I did the camp circuit with 10, 15 years ago, they're big time college coaches, or there's a handful of us in pro ball, and we just, you see them somewhere and, hey, do you know this guy? Do you know that guy? Yeah, we used to run around, do camps together and shoot stories about each other. So yeah, it's a super tight knit community. And, it's outside of my college friends, I think all my friends still are
baseball
coaches.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of flip it a little bit and compare and contrast here. So the Mighty Mussels, you've been with, this will be your 3rd season going in?
Yeah, this will be my 3rd season as a manager, 4th with the org, because 2020 was actually my first year.
Okay.
That virtual year. It's like a redshirt freshman year.
Yep. Yeah. That's right. So what do you see as a minor league manager? The main differences, maybe similarities, of course, there'll be some, but similarities, differences between coaching at the minor league professional level coaching at the college level, and how did you transition, and was it a learning curve for you?
I think there was a little bit of a learning curve, specifically that first year before we got shut down for COVID, just the speed of that things went at spring training. You know, in college ball, we had time limitations, and here, you know, we don't have time limitations. So I think the speed at first, it was just an adjustment period to that part of it from a holistic standpoint. But I think from a day-to-day standpoint, you know, we have more people involved here in professional baseball. You have your coaching staffs at all of the affiliate levels. You have the field coordinators, the hitting coordinator, infield coordinator, pitching coordinator. Then you have front office members, and there's just a lot of eyes watching everything. And that's an adjustment for the coaches. That's an adjustment for the players, because, you know, you come from college and you have your 5 coaches, and that's all. And you're, you know, maybe you're the guy who you train with in the off season, you know, and here you have everybody from the GM to, you know, however you want to rank titles, you know, that can basically see what you're doing. And there's a lot of different voices that come about with that. So, you know, I see it a lot, especially with where I'm at in the low A level. You know, the transition from whether it's high school or college to the pro game from a player standpoint. Guys in April are much different than they are from guys in August, because they understand it more. They understand the grind of it every single day. Like, all right, this is my job now. Like, I'm being paid to play baseball, you know, and some guys can handle the pressure of that. Some guys can't. Whereas in college, you see a lot more guys, you know, they're doing it as more of a hobby, even though they're on a team, than they are, you know, as a professional. And that's not to knock guys who do it for a hobby in college, you know, because I think it's a great way to be part of a team and to, you know, boost your college experience and to forever be connected with a group of guys. I think those are the big differences. You know, similarities with the kids who I'm working with during the summer. They're still 18 to 23, 24-year-old kids who are trying to figure out themselves, you know, not just as baseball players, but as adults, as some of them are getting engaged and, you know, kind of those off the field life things that's very, very similar to the college kids. You know, they just don't have these professional guys. They just don't have to go to class. So, you know, those, those life things are very, very similar. You know, the game's the same. The struggles are the same. They're just at a higher level where more people can see them, you know, when it does get into professional baseball.
You know, it makes me think of another question. This is a question I've actually been thinking about for quite some time. But so you take a sport like basketball or a sport like football, and you see players jumping from major college football into the NFL. You see players jumping from major college basketball into the NBA the next season. Baseball is very different in that way. You know, even if you're at, you know, playing at the University of Florida, or you're playing at you know, a major college baseball program, you're not going to jump from college level to, you know, Major League Baseball the next season. What would you say are the major differences there in the sport? I don't know. It's a tough question.
Yeah. I don't know how long is the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those thoughts that I've had for a long time, and that there's not a translation the way that it works in football.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why there's only been a handful of guys who, you know, have gone straight from college to the show, or done it in a real short period of time. Like Dave Winfield pops in my mind as being one guy. And then there was that pitcher a couple years ago from TCU, Brandon Finnegan, who ended like pitching the College World Series and pitching the World Series. Like, you know, a lot of it, there's just so many fine nuances of the game that you have to learn as a young pro player that you go watch the big leagues guys do it, and the consistency and fluidity that they do it with. Like, there's just levels to it. It's funny. I was saying today, we had inter squads today, and we had some of the big league guys down on our field, and I had the older group, more like the AAA, AA guys for this year. So, watching them, and then the game next to us was still going on, which was the like high A, low A, some FCL guys mixed in there. And just the difference between the two fields was incredible. And you're talking about guys who are like, maybe 2 years apart, like maybe one draft class apart. But the speed at which the game happens, the consistency of which pitches are thrown, pitches are taken, the discipline of hitters at the plate, watching Buxton today during a rehab, like take borderline pitches that were balls that, you move to the next field over, and it's like guys are just swinging at it, so it's that. And it's there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just the overall development that it has to take to do it at a really elite level. And even watching our higher level prospects take infield. I work a lot with the infielders, and, we have a couple guys who are really good defensively, and, you watch them and it's like, okay, like that's what it should look like. And then I go over and watch the Dominican take infield when they were training here a couple weeks ago before the Classic. Like, okay, that is just a whole nother level. Like, it is. And, you're just able to see the differences as to, and a lot of it comes with experience and reps, and, the 10,000 hour rule, and, guys who are, practicing the same thing 10,000 times as opposed to practicing 10,000 different things once, that consistency day in and day out, and just being able to, weather the storms, mentally and physically, because this game, it will kick your butt if you let it. And it's always interesting to me over the past couple of years to see how guys who I've had in Fort Myers, how they kind of climb the ladder throughout. And I see a kid like Eddie Julian, who started with us in 2021 and was put on the 40-man this past year. And like just the discipline that kid had every day, like every day wasn't perfect, and he struggled a lot. And, then he had some success, and he overcame it, and he had the mental fortitude to be able to keep putting one foot in front of the other and just not let things beat him down. So there's so many different things from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint, just that it's just really tough. It's really, really tough. And you get guys from all over the country, these high level international signs who, when I first walked in 20, I was like, oh, these guys, like, I came from Butler. This guy's from some Power 5. Like, oh, he knows this. And nope, doesn't know it, and it's like, you kind of take for granted, like, where these guys are coming from, thinking that they may be better, than they actually show to be. And then they learn, and, they always say the student isn't, or the student isn't ready till they fail, or, the teacher has to be ready when the student, I don't know the exact quote on it, but,
Sure.
Something like that, it's just really, really hard. It's,
maybe it's Deion Sanders said recently that baseball is a lot harder than football. So he played both professionally. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe that's that the nuance, like you said, that nuanced skill level. They say that nothing's harder than hitting a baseball.
Right. Yeah,
in
trying
any
to
sport.
Just 100, like watching Duran pitch today, like 101 and then a 90-mile-an-hour slider. Like, good luck.
Yeah, you wonder why anybody could hit at all.
Right.
Yeah, when you watch these guys pitch.
It's not even hit. Get out of the way. It's coming.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You touched about, the guys coming over and not understanding, but I'm going to give you a compliment. I came over, watching a couple of games this year, so I come over to the minor league side because I love to watch the guys work out. I love to bring the kids to watch. It's a different way of doing it. You guys have I've never seen it broken down the way you break it down. You did running drills. Remember, we talked about stealing bases.
Yeah.
You have the infield drills. You have a machine for the catches. You have a machine for the pitch. Like, short hops. I mean, it was just a real and of course you guys have the academy there, which is awesome. But the way you break things down with the pitching, it was just amazing, and you touch on every little aspect of it. So even if these guys come in not understanding it, I mean, I'm sure after spring training or after they've gone through a season, they really come out with really understanding the different parts of the game and really breaking it down. You guys do I even told the kids the other day, I'm like, wow, this is the best way to do it. I probably took some skills back to my team, but it was just like, this is the way that you need to know every single time, break it down, fundamentals, because, you always got to get better.
No doubt. And that's something that, we try to preach from day one of the spring training. Like, you can have all the information and data and all that you want. And we're going to use that information to guide your training. And when, here are the things that really make a big league infielder. Here are the metrics. So guess what? We're going to train to those. And like you said, like the short hops and ball security, like we're going to work on ball security from a catching standpoint. Like how do we present pitches? How do we block? Like we try to every day work on some fine skill that really requires some focused intent and diligent work from the player, and I think you do that day after day and for a long period of time, like hopefully you're going to build some really valuable skill for the player and get them to understand what it takes to be a big leaguer. We're in the player development business in minor league baseball, and any little thing that we can find that can help the player be a better player, whether it's base running, whether it's a grip from the pitchers, whatever it is, like we're on the hunt for it just to try to make them better.
Yeah, and I don't know how the other programs, I follow the Red Sox because I have some friends there. I follow the Mets because I'm a Met fan. Not going to talk much about their spring training, so we'll leave that off the talk. But the way you guys handle your spring training, the way, it's fan accessibility, one thing, the fans can see what you guys are doing. But even I followed the pitching the other day, and the guy was working on breaking balls only, or he's working on curveballs only, really mastering it, putting the comfort of it. Maybe other organizations do that, but I just witnessing it and seeing it firsthand, it was just amazing to see that. And then for the kids to say, hey, yes, I need to hone my skills. I need to work on them because, it's not just because you get to the major league level, it doesn't mean that you have it all together.
No doubt.
That you have, the skills are intact and that's it. You're always going to play well because at any given time, you're going to strike out. At any given time, you're going to make an error. It's just working on to know how to react to that or keeping the fundamentals in place. So I got to give you guys kudos. I mean, I was real impressed when I came down. It was like, I need to take a video and then take it back to my practice. This is how we're going to do it.
I appreciate it. It's a super collaborative effort. It's not just the coaches on the field. It's the strength and conditioning department. It's the baseball technology department. It's the athletic trainers. It's the front office. Like, it's a really collaborative effort, to make these players as best as we can make them. And like I said, just trying to find anything of value that we can, and whether it starts here and makes it way up to the big leagues for an impact. Like, at the end of the day, you're trying to get better and build better baseball players.
So,
I'm going to jump in here real quick, David. I just thought of another question as he was, going through his process there. Again, maybe this is another big question that I should have thought about beforehand, but
we'll see if we can bucket this one.
Okay, let's see if we can get a little bit. So David and I have talked about this, the amount of statistics that go into today's baseball game, just from a young age and the data that's being poured out. And David and I are both guys that follow baseball closer than just about anybody out there. I mean, we started a podcast and we write on a website, and so I think we have a little bit of knowledge on the subject, maybe, but still the data side of things kind of blow us away. How important is the data in today's game, and how do you make sense of all that information?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can make sense of all of it, because if you make sense of all of it, like it's like your brain will be like that emoji where the brain's out of the head and it's just like, but I personally feel that the data is important because the data, it can help guide your process with players. I don't think it's the end all be all when it comes to you have to have X, Y, or Z numbers in order to be a successful big leaguer. Because I don't think there is a big leaguer out there who hits all those metrics. But when you're evaluating a player and kind of how he compares to the rest of the players his age, or how close he is to being a big leaguer, like when we do dives on players to compare them to, I'll give you an example. During COVID, I did one with Spencer Steer, who we ended up trading in the Tyler Malley trade last year, but was able to find some good comps between him and Alex Bregman when Bregman was in the minor leagues. So the reason I bring that up is because it drove a process with Spencer that we were trying to get him to hit the ball harder. And his moves were very similar to Bregman. His numbers were very similar in a couple areas to Bregman. Then they were both similar. Both were junior drafts, college kids, had played the same amount, or Spencer had played to a level that Bregman, had played to. So you're able to go back and you could paint a picture for the player a little bit when you're talking about development process. I think that's what we do a really good job of, is we don't beat like data down guys' throats like, hey, your whatever is this number, but we give you like, hey, this is what an average WRC plus is, and this is where you're at. Like, these are the facts with it. Mm-hmm. So here's how we're gonna take this number, and we're gonna apply it to your training to help you be better in this area. Because we know that this is an area where it's really valuable at the major league level. So we allow that to really drive our training, to not only hit metrics in training, but you shoot to hit those during training so that they show up in a game. And if they're showing up during training, but they're not showing up in a game, then they ain't worth anything, because the game is really where it counts. And from a manager standpoint, I don't know all the metrics. I'm pretty good with the hitting and infield and base running ones, and a little bit of the catching. I'm still learning a lot of the pitching ones. I was in a pitching meeting the other day, and at the end of it, they said, "You got anything?" And I said, "Throw it over the white thing." So. But I think they're very good because it does paint a picture of like where the player is in their development process.
Sure.
When you get to the big leagues, they're a little bit more fine. It's a little bit more about winning up there. Actually, it's a lot more about winning up there. And so you use metrics in a different way from a scouting standpoint and from just an overall game strategy standpoint, which we still use those down here. It's just like, I'm not playing matchups in low A.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm trying to
get these guys to the next level.
Yeah, I'm trying to get these guys out of low A,
right.
And seeing if they can get left-handers out so that we have a better idea with it. But I like the metrics. I've always been a numbers guy. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to keep like a baseball scorebook of my video games. So like I do stats and all that stuff. So like I love that kind of stuff. So I get super into it.
Well, that's good. You got the right field.
Yeah.
Baseball's a stats game. That's interesting.
Well, I had a kid the other day say, "Hey, coach, what do you think my velo was on that?" I'm like, "Yo, what?" I said, "You know what? I'm old school and I'm probably a dinosaur. How do you feel today? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about something that's baseball related? Then go out there and play." Because on the other statistic stuff, I do the stats in the book, and I do the batting average and all that. But when it comes to WAR and WHIP and everything, I'm just like, go ahead and hit the ball out, see how far it goes.
Yeah. I mean, like velocity is king right now in baseball. Whether it's pitching wise, you're seeing 90+ mile an hour sliders, and and if it's out there, you hit the ball harder, you hit it at better angles, like you're going to get better results. So you try to gear towards those things that will help. But when kids, you see it all the time. Well, you go back to the recruiting process, like, I hit 92. Cool. Was it a strike? Like you threw 92, but you didn't throw any strikes. Like you didn't get anybody out. Okay. Like
Well,
I'm sorry, I can't offer you a full ride. I'm sorry,
yeah.
So there's that give and take with it too. I
Yeah.
think the numbers tell us a story of kind of what's inside the player, but there's a lot of nuances, throwing strikes, being able to, your exit velocity may be 100, but you may swing and miss 60% of the time. So like
Exactly.
your bat to ball skills aren't good. So there's all kinds of different factors that you have to consider.
So what is it? We always ask this question, or we know that kind of know about it with the minor leaguers. But what's the life like as a minor league manager? Any difference?
When you manage in the Florida State League, you are half manager, half meteorologist.
Yeah, no doubt.
So life as a manager in the Florida State League, it's great because you're dealing with young kids who are still very green in the game. There's a lot of teaching that goes on. We do a game review after every game, good or bad. It's probably 10 minutes. Some days might be 20, showing them video clips. There's just a lot of teaching that goes on with it. It's fun. They're young kids. They're green. They're hungry. They want to learn. I really enjoy that part of it, being down here in Low A. The weather part, that's a different animal. I'm always looking. It's okay. It's 3:30. Are we going to hit on the field or are we gonna
Exactly?
Okay, well then it rains. All right. So then I'm talking with our GM and it's like, okay, are we going to start at 7? Are we going to start at 7:30? And you're trying to predict, it says 60%. Well, let me just go look outside and see.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's, my typical day, right now during spring training, I've got some different responsibilities during spring training. So I'm here at the complex anywhere between 5:30 and 6, get a workout in, eat breakfast. We have our morning meetings. You're on the field during the morning. And then after that, we have games in the afternoon. And then you do your game reports, you review the day. And then I've been helping out with the schedule, the master schedule for spring training, helping our field coordinator out. So you're getting input from all the different coordinators and, who's pitching, where do we need bullpen catchers at. And I'm usually home sometime between 6 and 7:30, depending on the day. And I eat dinner, play with my kid for about 20 minutes. He goes to bed, and about 10 minutes later, I'm in the rack. So, and then wake up and do it all over again the next day. And then during the season, I try to keep a pretty consistent schedule. 7:00 home game, I'm usually here between 10:15, 10:45-ish, kind of same thing, get a workout in, watch some video from the night before. For me, I like working out in the morning. It clears my head. It gets my day going right. Then watch some video, have some meetings probably with some players or coaches, and then we're on the field and early work, and whether I'm with the infielders, outfielders, catchers, hitters, wherever I'm needed that day. And then we hit the 3:30 time frame and we're trying to figure out what we're doing for BP. And then after, we do the game and everything. And after the game for home games, my son requests that we go hit in the batting cages afterwards. So I drop my stuff off. He has to get his cage time in.
That's fun.
So I go drop my stuff down, take a deep breath, and go hit with him, be dad for a while. And then it's reports and lineups and schedules for the next day, and eat dinner at some point. And I'm usually home somewhere between 1 and 2, and then get up and do it all again the next day. But I'm fortunate that my wife grew up in baseball, so she understands the schedule and the demands of the job. But Sheila enjoys coming to the ballpark as well, and bringing my son with me. And it's kind of been our lifestyle, and more, it's been my lifestyle my whole life, but I'm very fortunate that it's been hers too. And then, we get to, I really do enjoy the pro off season from, whenever our season ends in September, till probably the first of the year in January, when things really start to get cooking from my standpoint, and just being home, being with my family, playing some golf now. I live down here in Florida. But I enjoy that. I always felt like in college baseball, I was always on the go. The only break you got was between Christmas and New Year's. And even sometimes that wasn't a break, because as a volunteer, you're running around working camps all that time. So, I've really enjoyed that part of the professional life. And, being a manager, I didn't even think I was going to be a manager when I got hired. So having to learn that and being able to do it, I really do enjoy it. And the relationships that you build with players. I'll tell you a real quick story. My first year managing, I got hired as a manager about 5 weeks before the season started. And so like the whole year I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, like just trying to learn. And about the middle of the season, we had a player who was going to get called up to Cedar Rapids. And so I called him in my office and everything. And a kid who signed for $5,000 out of Venezuela went to 16. And so I brought him in. I was like, hey, man, I just wanted to let you know, I know you had a rough night and everything, but you're going to CR tomorrow. And the kid just looked up at me, smiled, gave me a big hug, goes, that's the first thing I've ever understood clearly and think ever. So, when you get to tell a kid that he's being promoted, that's without a doubt the best part of the job, Yeah. It's just really rewarding. And not that I did any of the work that, they put on the work, but just to see the joy on their face, that they've worked hard to really achieve the next level of their professional journey. That's the best part of the job.
Well, you have one thing going good for you as well, being in, let's say, spring training, is that when I was in camp and I saw you at Fort Myers there, and so you get to butt heads with some guys that have been, Hall of Famers in this game, and really get some. I mean, you guys were together on the field showing the guys, so I'm sure that really helps out a lot to kind of help with your, development skills and everything.
No doubt about it. I mean, I grew up in that era, when Paul Molitor was playing, and he was such a hard-nosed player. I mean, I remember going to watch him when I was a kid, and I always admired the way that he played the game. And, very simple, like Ryan Sandberg was my favorite player growing up. And those two guys, they played the game the same way. And, it was a little intimidating at first to be coaching base running with Paul Molitor, somebody who really, not only is he in the Hall of Fame, but he's got all these accolades, but he really took pride in his base running. And, that first day, I don't remember what day you came out there, but, the first day I was with him, I was very careful with the words that were coming out of my mouth. And, I had to, I kept hearing my mom in my head, think before you speak, and, but
you don't want to be corrected by the Hall of Famer over there.
I know, but the thing about Paul is he is still learning the game, and he has such a great eye to see the little fine details. So that week where I got to teach with him, we were bouncing ideas off each other, and I would run a drill, and he would give me feedback on it and see things maybe that I didn't see. And it just, you're always learning in this game. And he brought some things up to me that I've never heard of, or I never thought of. And then I brought some things up to him that he was like, oh, that's super interesting, So it was really cool. At the end of the week, when he was leaving, he said he really enjoyed working with me. I kind of took that as I passed the test. Cool. But it's cool to see somebody like that of his caliber and stature, continue to want to help out, to want to learn and evolve with the game.
No doubt.
Awesome. So there's another thing that me and Brian kind of been, and I'm sure everyone in baseball right now has kind of been kind of button heads on, and maybe just kind of get a manager's point of view on it. So there's a lot of different rule changes that have happened in baseball, and you have the extra innings with the run in second, but that's also Major League Baseball has taken on that as well. I think last year with minor league baseball, the shift ended where you had the lines put on the field to make sure guys weren't over shifting. And now spring training, you have this pitch clock. And I think last year you might have had the pitch clock in minor league baseball. And can you kind of just give us an idea how this affects your strategy in the game with the different changes? How have the guys been able to really like catch on quickly, quick learning curve. I mean, the fans are still trying to catch on. Now I find myself watching the clock and not watching the game.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, 8 seconds, you better look up. And I seen pictures like right at that 1 second mark. I was in the Twins game the other day, and he picks his foot up, and then the clock goes out. So can you just kind of give us an idea on the manager's point of view? How do you kind of strategize your game with that?
Yeah, the pitch clock last year when we had it was definitely an adjustment for guys because we didn't use it during spring training. So the first time we used it was the first game of the year. And, there were little nuances as to, when the clock would start and because every ballpark had a different clock operator and they were learning how to do it as well. Mm-hmm. So there were some things that, probably didn't go as planned. But you just try to educate them, like, especially in lower, like, hey guys, this is what we're dealing with. I mean, 2 years ago, we were the first ones to have the automated strike zone. So, that was an adjustment. There's always that adjustment period. And, it probably took us a good 3-4 weeks to really get accustomed to the pitch clock, both from a pitcher standpoint and from a hitter standpoint. But there's definitely strategy involved, whether it's, the pitcher just holding there and freezing the hitter. The hitter's already used his timeout, and the pitcher's just going to hold it, and make him wait. There, I think, and then there was what was it, Scherzer a couple weeks ago, just kind of quick pitched as soon as he got it, like didn't move, and as soon as the umpire pointed, like went. I think there's definitely some strategy involved in it, and guys are getting creative with the way that they use the clock. From a pitcher standpoint and, from a base running standpoint too, with the disengagement rule and only being able to pick over 2 times, and the point of that and all these is to create more action, to not make the game drag as long. I do think there's some instances to where, the pitch clock where there's a lack of feel sometimes, from the pace of the game and everything in certain situations to where the pitch clock either stops or continues on, for, a pitcher wants a new ball, like just give the guy a new ball, but that's the umpire's discretion. I know there's rules written in there for those types of things, but those were all things that we were able to test out at the minor league level last year. And, from the shifting standpoint, the pizza slice, the lines that you referred to, that was something that was just us at the low A level, low A Florida State League level that they put in last year. And, that was definitely an adjustment. I thought more from turning a double play than anything, from the backside guy being able to get to the bag in time on some double plays. And I found out we're going to have that again to start the year this year. So, playing with certain depths on the infield, with that guy who's closest to that line, it certainly plays in your strategy. And it's something that, we've had conversations about as an infield group and from our analytics team and our baseball research team, that we're still trying to learn, like where the best positioning is for it. And I know it's all in the spirit of trying to create more offense and create more excitement and for the game. And we get to be the test labs for it, which, it takes a little bit of getting used to, both from a manager standpoint too, because you're so used to playing the game one way, and you have guys who like they're trying to develop as players, and we go back to the data points where, let's just take batting average, and you got guys in this league who they can't play up in the middle of the field, but in another league, they can put a guy right behind second base. So like, how do you compare those two players, if you're just using batting average, let's say. Sure. So there's some different things from it. I'm a big fan of the challenge system that we had last year with the automated strike zone, and where the pitcher, catcher, or batter can challenge it right away. I thought that was really cool. It plays some, it gave both sides a little bit of control per se, as to, feel. And there was definitely some education on that. When's a good time to use them? When's not a good time to use them? We were playing the team last year, and one of their guys used it on the first pitch of the game, which was kind of interesting. And I know their manager wasn't happy about it, and he lost it. So, just educating guys like, hey, you're in a 2-0 count and the guy throws it right down the middle of the plate, or it's a borderline strike. You don't want to swing at that pitch anyways. If he calls it a strike, so be it. So there are some education things that go into it. If it's something that they want to take up the ladder, I know they're going to do it in AAA this year too. So I'm interested to see how specifically the automated strike zone and the challenge system plays in AAA this year with some more veteran guys.
So when they had implemented minor league baseball first, I'm assuming Major League Baseball kind of reached out to you guys or at least the organization and say, hey, how did it work out? Kind of get some feedback for the next level. Yeah.
They reached out to us about twice a year during the middle of the year, both field staff, front office staff, and the players. They reached back. They, a multiple choice survey, and then some open-ended questions that they would ask to gain that feedback and just gain a better perspective of it. With all the rule changes, because they're trying to find the right mix to, whether it's the automated strike zone or the shift restrictions, they're trying to find the recipe for what they want to serve.
No, it's good. It's good that they were, it was kind of a reciprocal process where they were getting the feedback, but it's making the game interesting, I think, in a different way. I saw that you were mentioning with the throwbacks to the bases. Stolen bases are way up during spring training.
Way up. I just had my hitting coach just sent that to me right before we popped on.
Yeah, I saw a stat yesterday about it, and it looks like they're at basically where they were at the end of spring training last year. We're at already.
Yeah, and guys have only been caught 9 more times this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my question back to our hitting coach when he sent that. I posed the same question. The bigger question is how many extra runs has it created? Because that's ultimately what you're gaining.
Right.
But I think that's the exciting part of the game, right? When you got guys, I think I went to one spring training game and I could say that no one stole a base. I was there for 5 innings. The guys were on base, no one's stealing. Then it kind of gets, I can understand the kids, like nowadays they say the game's boring. They don't want to watch it. They just want to play it. But when the stolen base is like the exciting part, you're trying to get the extra base, the speed,
right?
Throw it down. It just makes it a different aspect. And when you don't have that, then I can see it now. When I watch the game, I was like, yeah, I can understand what the kids are saying. It is boring.
For sure.
Banana baseball to every single baseball game. So
that's right.
So the one thing I'm fearful of with the clock is that I'm a Mets fan, and we got a good squad. Let's just say we get to the World Series, and someone forgets about the clock. Last out, we lose the World Series on the clock. That's gonna be
no doubt. That's very true. That's very true. Like whether it's a hitter or whether it's a pitcher, bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. Like, now kids will be practicing in the backyard. Bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. I'm batting, full count. The pitch clock expired.
It's over. Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be some funny endings, I think.
Yeah, could be. We'll see. But like, the thing that we noted last year, and we're seeing it this year in spring training, is all across the minor leagues. Everybody in the minor leagues used it last year, so there's a lot of players who are used to it. And I think at the big league level, it's going to be exposed more, like those instances, kind of like the first, what was it, the Braves Boston game that ended in a tie because of the clock. Like those are going to get super blown out of, they're going to get all the attention because it's something that went wrong. But if we focus on what's going right with it, with the pace of play, with games being shorter, and more compact in terms of their entertainment value, I think it's going to be a big success when it's all said and done.
Well, I think the only games that really go really long are the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankee 4-hour games. It just seems like they always have those 4-hour games,
Yeah.
One other thing I want to touch on, what did it feel like? I mean, you've gone to college level coaching you went through the whole journey, that side of it, and you get with the Twins, and then you get a managerial position, and then last year you won the Manager of the Year award. I mean, how did that feel to have that accomplishment?
It was pretty cool. It was really humbling to be recognized by your peers in the league, who vote on that. And, when I reflect on my journey and where I came from, like it's almost surreal a little bit. At the same time, I also think that it's not just a manager of the year award, it's a staff award. And because we had a really good staff last year, and every day those guys made my job really easy. They took care of things in the cages, and they were prepared with player development plans and game strategy and in-game communication between the five of us, not just coaches, but then you throw in our video assistant and our strength and conditioning coach and our athletic trainers and our clubhouse guy and our GM, with the muscles. Like all those people, like they play a central role in that, in me getting that reward, because when you work with good people, it makes coming to the ballpark a lot more enjoyable every single day. And when it's more enjoyable, everybody can succeed just a little bit more. And I was fortunate to be at the helm for it and to receive the award. But I really do, like, I told all my coaches when they reached out, is like, this is just as much your award as it is mine. So thank you for everything that you've done for it, because I really do feel that it's a staff award.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, sounds like you guys got a great organization going down there.
Yeah, it's fun. We have fun. We get to work. We have a lot of really smart people who are very selfless in their own desires. They want to help the org win, and they want to make players better.
Yeah. Well, Brian, we really appreciate you joining us today. We're wishing you luck here in the Florida State League season. You guys start a week or 2 weeks after the
April 6th is opening day for us.
Okay, so about a week later.
Yeah, about a week or so.
Okay, and I just want to plug a couple of quick things. You could find this episode when we launch it on YouTube and on Spotify now. So we've got the video version and we've got the audio version. And I wanted to plug our shop at Legends on Deck. I'm wearing my Legends on Deck hat, as I usually do on the podcast. So on Spotify, you can't see it, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it and log on to kind of check out our new stuff too. We've got some new logos on there. And David, I want to let you talk about the sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Easy Mortgage for sponsoring. Easy Mortgage is based out of Florida, but they're in about 12 states that they can actually handle any type of loan, residential, mortgage, refinance, and then there's other states as well, but they're on easymortgage.com. We thank them for sponsoring the show. And Brian Meyer, thank you for being on the show. I mean, you and I have built a friendship over the last year. I mean, you're true to who you are. The conversation we've had on how you the love of the game and the way you talk about developing, I've really taken a lot of that to heart, and I've had kind of like, I've been coaching for a long time, and never on a professional level, obviously, but it's really helped me with my kids and to kind of show them the love of the game. And I will be bringing them out to Mussels games because I want to see them, low A ball, high A ball. To me, it's baseball, it's professional baseball, and it kind of gives them a good sense of what it can take to get to that next level. So I really appreciate you being on the show and saying yes to being with us today. I really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys asking me out. I had a blast. And anytime we can talk baseball, it's always a good time.
Absolutely. Episode 31.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.